Okay, so it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this small one-day symposium on music and nationalism, organized, the main organizer being this network, research network called UskoMus. And I'm now taking the liberty to go back a bit to the history of this network, since it's been very silent for maybe past 5 years or so. Well, it was officially established in 2010. Oh, here it is. No. What? In the University of Turku, with the departments of musicology and comparative religion, universities in Turku, meaning that there was collaborative action between the Finnish language University of Turku and the Swedish language Åbo-Akademi University. But here's some basic information. No, it's not. What's going on here? No. Well, for some reason there's some technological issues now, so I can't show you the website of the network. But anyway, UskoMus, of course, is a Finnish. It's a pun on a Finnish word. UskoMus meaning a belief or shibboleth or so forth, and combining the words usko and mus, religion or belief and music. So that's the general idea. In 2010, we hosted a conference in Turku on music and transcendence, and the origins of the network actually go 1 year further. That in 2009 we organized there with the same group of people, though then the actual network wasn't established officially, but that seminar was on music and Islam. And so this is now, it's not an attempt to revive the network, it is to revive. It is an act of reviving the network. And I'm happy to note also that maybe a week ago I received some good news from one particular funding organization, meaning that there will be another one either later this year or early next year on music and multiculturalism. So, but further information will be distributed when those details are confirmed. But nevertheless, there is going to be this similar kind of an event later on. And yeah, we've been also involved in different other events. There's a forthcoming conference in Leicester this summer called Fandom and Religion, and the network is part of that. And then last year here in Helsinki we hosted a youth studies or youth research oriented conference called, and well, this is probably the best title I've ever conceived for a conference. The main title is Holy Crap: Intersections of the Popular and the Sacred in Youth Cultures. So that was last year in Helsinki. So I hope that this network will get going and gain momentum once again. And then there are, I know certain people of you have been involved in it already, and I'm happy to continue the discussion. There's no official leading group for the network at the moment, so everybody's free to express their interest and join and contact. Maybe nowadays, at this moment, it's pretty much run or coordinated by me. But nevertheless, also alongside this happening wouldn't be possible without the support of music archive JAPA, former Jazz and Pop Archive, not only because I'm employed by the archive, but also because of Jouni, who's here to document and has been taking care of Jouni Eerola, who's been taking care of practicalities, and also the Finnish doctoral program for music research, especially Kaarina Kilpiö, who's been very helpful in making this thing happening. But before we go into the actual program, there's one note about that actually. Liisa-Maija Hautsalo had to unfortunately withdraw her participation because of illness, and therefore that means that we will be having the program as it is, but only 2 papers in the afternoon after lunch session with Meri Herrala and Olli Heikkinen, for whom both we have now 45 minutes then. So Olli Heikkinen's presentation will start at 2:15 p.m. But otherwise the program is as it stands, though please know that we will be changing venue, so we will be moving from this place, these facilities to Music Center, Musiikkitalo, between 3 and 4 p.m. But yes, before we go to the guest speakers, just a few notes about the idea of this symposium. And well, in 2010, I remember this very relaxed dinner conversation with one of the members of the network, Professor Veikko Anttonen, Comparative Religion in Turku University, and then talked about this, that what would be the next appropriate topic for such a conference. That this was a Transcendence conference then. So and we almost immediately agreed that, well, nationalism would be a way to approach here and then go forth. And so the implication, of course, is that we take now nationalism as a form of, or a belief system, and that implication comes with the idea that if you are working with a network and topics that deal with music and belief systems, different belief systems, then nationalism is one of those. But and this is I would say it's probably at one point it seemed that nationalism is a bit outdated topic to discuss, but nowadays it seems that it's researching or re-emerging again, and then in that sense one might sometimes talk about nationalisms rather than just something simply or singular nationalism. So that starting from the kind of more traditional ideas of nationalism and the idea of how nations are formed, nations are constructed, nation states are formed, and so forth. These kind of classics like the Eric Hobsbawm's nationalism and Benedict Anderson's imagined communities, where this idea of how national identity is and the communality rests on this collective imagination that is maintained, especially in the mass media and then also educational institutions. But then in more later years, there's been kind of different kind of additions here. We can talk about banal nationalism, not the kind of official nationalism that is maintained and sustained by the state, for example, but the kind of everyday practices that foster nationalism, even though we are not so very well aware of it. We have now the World Championships in ice hockey going on. That's the prime forum for a platform to exhibit banal nationalism and sports in general. But you could also say that the way in which various musical phenomena also are classified according to nation states and nations exemplifies this. And also the upcoming Eurovision Song Contest, of course, is probably the prime example in the musical context there about this banal nationalism, where the banality may take another forms or different aspects, not just the everyday aspects, but those that might invest the idea of banality a bit dubious and pejorative aspects also, and the kind of ways in which those performances of nation challenge the conventional or the established forms of or presentations of nation. And then nowadays I think that it's very, very, very topical to talk about, and even fashionable to talk about transnationalism. Everything is transnational now. So, but there also while the implication is that you try to get beyond the national kind of context, still you are implicated in the kind of a dynamics of different nations in different situations. But yeah, the question of course is what do these general points of departure have to do with music? And well, as pointed out, maybe ESC, Eurovision Song Contest, is one very good example there, that how nation states are operational. And also it's a good example, like in the sports arena, when the Soviet Union collapsed, suddenly there were 12 heavyweight wrestlers in Olympic Games, more than there used to be, because all those big guys came from the former Soviet Union. And same happened, you could say, in Eurovision Song Contest, when the Soviet or the socialist bloc was dismantled. That particular event sort of blew in different directions, and the whole concept, to some extent, well, not the whole concept, but it changed. There's in this particular book, Philip Bollman also has been dealing quite a lot with these questions, maintains or says that the thesis in this particular book is, quote, that we can experience nationalism in any music at any time. Music is malleable in the service of the nation, not because it is a product of national and nationalist ideologies, but rather because musics of all forms and genres can articulate the processes that shape the state. Music can narrate national myths and transform them to nationalist histories. Music marks national borders while at the same time mobilizing those wishing to cross or dismantle borders. Music enhances the sacred qualities of the nation, and it can secularize religion so that it conforms to the state. There is then no single place to experience the interaction of music and nationalism. There are also, well, this is an example, very, very recent example of the importance of transnational aspects. Hip-hop in Europe, cultural identities and transnational flows, says the subtitle there. I don't know if the implication is that hip-hop somehow would be more transnational music or genre, type of music than any other, which may be a kind of a, you could say, a historical myopia, so that it's very close to us and it exhibits the transnational aspects at the moment in a kind of a degree greater than maybe some other. And then the more historically distant genres have been tended to or there's a tendency to equate them more closely with national identity. There's a very few, this is a history book called, well, the title says The History of International Popular Music, or maybe transnational. But nevertheless, there's also a direct attempt to challenge the idea of writing only national histories. But yet again, this book also is implicated explicitly in the kind of examination of how nations are narrated in musical contexts. Then finally, what are some points of these questions of how to approach this equation in terms? I think that this resonates with something that Hans has actually written in one of his articles about the kind of a national or the juxtaposition between national significance of music and then the kind of a national essence, in a sense, or that if we approach music, certain types of music having national essence, and then as opposed to approaching certain kinds of music as having national significance, so that this would be the essence, that there's a tendency to write music about music, especially in the realm of historiography, as if it belongs to a nation, somehow exhibits the qualities of the nation, somehow is exemplifying the national identity. So there's Danish rock and roll, Finnish music history, or it literally translates as the history of music of Finland. And then also the history of this Riimi Riimistä book, that's a history of Finnish hip-hop. And then there's a Danish hip-hop Just a few examples. Well, my interest is mainly in the historiography, or recently has been in the historiography of popular music, so that's why and in the Nordic countries, so that's why I have these kinds of examples. But then there is a juxtaposition in this national significance that music in, or musics in a nation. So that when we go beyond this idea of music somehow exhibiting something essential about the nation, then we might approach the kind of empirical reality of music in any given nation state that proves to be more varied than the history books and the histories of the nation suggests. So there's always this, what, for example, in that book on international history of international popular music, Janne Mäkelä writes about the Anglo-theme, that there, for example, in popular music, that you could say that there's this Anglo-American aspect to many styles of popular music, and they nowadays are more or less intertwined and integrated into the idea of Finnish music as well. But here it's some examples: Swedish, Danish, especially, well, 2 Swedish, 1 Danish, and one English language book about where the title explicitly says that there's music in the country, suggesting that it's not just about those types of music that have been elevated to a pedestal in terms of national identity, but you could actually treat also the different so-called foreign musics as part of the national musical imaginary, if you wish. So that's to me at the moment, one of the central kind of a dynamics that's at play. And of course we can continue the list of these different nationalisms, not only the transnationalism, but we can talk about ethno-nationalism, which basically means that how every ethnic group is treated as a national group in the sense that its fundamental aim is to establish a nation state. And how does that then relate to certain musical phenomena? Or you could talk also about ultra-nationalism, neo-nationalism, these kinds of fundamentalist or radical movements, and how music is employed in those. There are several interesting studies been done on, for example, the neo-Nazis in Sweden and the radical right in Sweden, and their use of reggae to support their ideology, which creates a certain kind of a tension between the whiteness and blackness of things. But yeah, that's my part, just a kind of a general introduction, and now we'll move on. Just a few notes about the program here. As I mentioned, Liisa-Maija Hautsalo is not going to be present, but then after we'll have Hans' presentation next, and then a lunch break. There's a restaurant downstairs and several other maybe more cozy ones in the nearby blocks, and then after lunch at 1 o'clock, 1:30, we'll convene here, and after that we'll have a coffee at the cafeteria downstairs, and if you go there, and just please notify the staff that you belong to this symposium, and you will get the coffee for free, yep. And during that coffee break, it's an hour-long coffee break, we'll be moving on to the music center, where we'll have, so this first part is, let's say, an academic, or presentations by academics, and then the second part is presentations by other professionals in the field. But they will be introduced separately.